The Voyagers update for No Man's Sky has sparked an unprecedented surge in player numbers, not just because it adds shiny new features like customizable Corvettes or the ability to spacewalk, but rather because it strikes at something profound within the gamer's psyche. It fundamentally alters how we engage with vast, infinite worlds. Now at its core, this update is not just about expanding the game's mechanics, but it's redefining the emotional layer here, the psychological relationship that we as players have with the universe that we've been exploring for all these years. I'm going to break this down for you in this video and sum up why Hello Games have pieced together something that's more than the sum of its parts and why so many other developers have completely missed out on this one. No Man's Sky has always been about the awe of discovery, and that set in an endless space. Quintillions of different stars, absolutely trillions upon trillions of different planets. But that infinity can ultimately feel somewhat alienating to many players. Over time, the planets can blur together in our memories. Exploration can feel transient as we move from location to location, and despite the fact that many of these places are absolutely beautiful and some are just absolutely barren, fundamentally there's a sensation that some players experience of feeling untethered. And that's why base building can be such a key feature. It brings us home, it gives us an anchor, it gives us a place to call home. The Voyagers update then flips all of this on its head by making not just your base your home, but also your ship itself. It becomes an emotional anchor, a personalised, habitable space that you can take absolutely everywhere with you. It's yours in the universe, a space that would otherwise perhaps dwarf you, an area like we say where you might feel untethered. In other words, these new ships, the Corvettes, are fulfilling a primal sci-fi yearning for agency and belonging in the depths of the unknown. And this is something that I feel is very appealing for many space gamers, but it's also something which the vast majority of space games absolutely miss. So here's the psychological hook. The ship is effectively an extension of yourself as a player. You can look around the internet and you'll see players describing their Corvettes not just as tools, not as ships, but as safe havens, companions, or even characters in their story. So in a game where everything is procedurally generated, building a ship from scratch, hulls, interiors, modules, gives you a sense of creation that combats the game's inherent loneliness. Yes, we can do that with bases, but we can't take those with us. Because when you take your new customized Corvette up there into space, whether it's Thomas the Tank Engine or the Millennium Falcon, you're up there travelling the galaxy in a space that feels both lived in as well as personal. So this ownership then really does transform the passive sightseeing into an active sense of world building, making the infinite feel both intimate and meaningful. Because now you're no longer just flying through space and experience the wonder of the universe, but you're also taking your home along with you. This might seem like a subtle shift, but it's actually far deeper than many people are realising. You're up there in space and you get out of your pilot seat, you're walking around the interior of your ship, you look out the windows and you can see those massive gas giants out there, asteroids fields, space stations, or even other ships flying by. So this really is truly a shift in how we experience No Man's Sky as a game. And for me, I firmly believe this is one of the reasons that No Man's Sky has peaked at 98,000 players on Steam. People aren't just playing the game, they are now inhabiting the game, and that makes all the difference. And yes, this is a foundational reason why ship interiors are so important to games with spaceships. Now, of course, No Man's Sky is not the only space game with ship interiors, so it's worth pausing for a moment to look at a few others, and why some of them are very close to achieving exactly what No Man's Sky has achieved here, but whilst others have completely missed the point. So let's start with Star Citizen. This one, of course, has some absolutely amazing spaceships. Regardless of what you feel about the game itself, I've said many times before that this game easily has the best spaceships out there, and it's no slouch when it comes to ship interiors. And this really is one of the reasons I do feel that the ships sell so well in that game and why it's generated so much money. It's because there is a psychological hook, a real deep drive for players to want to be able to inhabit their world, inhabit the game that they are exploring, and therefore having ships that you don't just fly, but ships that are yours, that are your home, that are part of who you are, well, that makes all the difference to the gameplay that you're playing, the game world that you're inhabiting. And from this point of view, this is something that Star Citizen does very well. It's also got some truly beautiful planets in the game as well, and all of this kind of adds together. If and when Star Citizen ever fully emerges as a complete game with very complex and long-form game loops, then, well, it could be perhaps the best space game out there, but that's a long road and a different argument. Now, Starfield attempted the same thing here as No Man's Sky with its spaceships, arguably perhaps not quite as good as No Man's Sky, but very, very similar. Now, the problem here is not with the ships in Starfield, but with the world itself, with the gameplay, with the universe. Because it was so divided because of all those loading screens, it didn't really feel like you were exploring. So therefore, whilst you could inhabit the spaceship, it didn't really feel like you're going on a galactic trip when you stepped into that ship. And by the same token, Elite Dangerous has an amazing galaxy, full-scale, one-to-one replica pretty much of the Milky Way. And whilst you can go out there on some amazing journeys that many people have over the years, I'm a huge fan of exploration in that game, the spaceship itself is just a vehicle. It's not a home, and this is something that game is deeply, deeply missing. And all of this highlights what No Man's Sky has actually achieved here. Features then like EVA, spacewalking or atmospheric skydiving, they also add to thrill. But the fact here, the buzz is not just about the idea that you can spacewalk or that you can skydive, but the way in which they make the universe feel more real. And they do this simply because you can walk around your ship, open a door and step out into the void of space, or otherwise step out into, I guess, gravity and skydive down to the surface. So sure, players can rave about Iron Man vibes or epic replayable freedom, but underneath all of this, it's the immersion, the fact of seamless transition. Exiting your ship in zero-G, walking interiors during flight, all of this blurs gameplay and reality. And yes, that means it's something that hits hard, even if we're not really realising exactly what's making it feel quite so special. So yeah, this is because two different things are going on at once. We've got some amazing gameplay experiences, but also the emotional connection here. The fact that this is allowing players to live the dream of being a spacefarer, not just a pilot. It's the holistic integration of two different philosophies of gameplay. One, piloting spaceships. Two, the ability to explore these environments on foot. And of course, yes, No Man's Sky has always allowed you to do both of these things, but there's always been that transition, that moment of teleporting from the ship to the exterior. And here, that is now completely seamless, and the ship interior is key for that. In other words, ship interiors are not just additive, they are instead, as I've been saying for many years, transformative. They reignite the wonder by making the game feel vibrant, personal and alive, even after all these years. So, in case you're feeling that there's something different about the Voyagers update and you can't quite put your finger on it, well, that's because there is something different, but not just that, there's also something deeper. And all of that boils down to empowerment. Voyagers empowers players to craft their own narrative inside of an infinite universe. They allow you to blend creativity, building your dream ship, immersions, living inside of it, and connections, sharing that ship. It's why sentiment is overwhelmingly positive for this update. It's got to be said that the game's failed botched launch was healed a long time ago, but this update, Voyagers, is taking No Man's Sky in a completely different direction, and it's something that I feel is very, very positive for the game. Now, there's also another aspect of this update I'd like to talk about, and that is the multiplayer crew mechanics. This elevates the whole concept further by turning isolation into connection. And of course, you've been able to go around with other players before and fly together perhaps with these different ships, but here, sharing the same ship, whilst one of you is piloting and the others are hanging out in the crew quarters, or simply everyone hanging out together during autopilot, watching the galaxy pass by together, that's not just superficial co-ops. Instead, it's something far deeper. It's about belonging in a shared space. And it's a shared space that you can decorate with friends whilst you're travelling through the depths of the cosmos. And yeah, that's an emergent joy. It's something that echoes real-life bonds like road trips or house parties, but in space inside a game. And that's something that I feel a lot of other games are missing. And this is why I feel that this update, Voyagers update, is much, much more popular than all the other No Man's Sky updates released before. And that's because this update is not just about gameplay. In fact, is a paradigm shift, and that one is something psychological. It satisfies our need for community in the vast emptiness, and also really it does recreate that dream of exploring space, not just from the point of view as a pilot, but from the point of view as a deep space explorer. So there's my thoughts, but you know what? I'd also like to know your thoughts. What's making Voyagers hit for you? How about sharing your Corvette dreams out there? Talk about the ships you've built, talk about your explorations in space, and perhaps what all of this means for you. Do you feel that Voyagers has fundamentally changed what No Man's Sky means and what it represents as a space game? Love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. There is another one on the screen right here. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.